All right. Well, thank you, first of all, Michelle, for the great video. It's wonderful to see everybody's faces and be reminded of all the great projects that we've undertaken and the great programs we've experienced this year. So I want to welcome everyone to the June 23rd meeting of the Rotary Club of Greenville. It's a great day to be a Rotarian. And at this time, I'd like to kick off the meeting by calling on Bert Strange for invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we gather today to celebrate the end of another Rotary year, during which we've been able to do good in the world, from the streets and neighborhoods of Greenville to Honduras and Haiti and around the globe. We give thanks for the leadership of President Scott and all those who have served with him in leading this club to make significant positive impact on this place we call home. Continue to remind us, we pray, that we are called every day to live out the Rotary motto of service above self and the guiding principles of the four-way test: truth, fairness, goodwill and friendship, and benefit for all. Strengthen us, empower us to build bridges of peace and wholeness for all who so desperately need these things in our nation and our world today. Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Bert. I think we've got a number of guests with us today, so we really want to give you a special welcome. Glad you're able to join us. So for our announcements, I got a good many announcements today. I want to let everybody know that our board met last week and we voted to delay in-person meetings. The West End is open and they're doing a great job following all COVID guidelines. But given the increase in cases over the last couple of weeks, our board decided not to meet in person in July. The board will revisit the in-person meetings each month and decide when it's safe. We're anxious to see each other, but the safety of our members must come first. Update on our fundraisers. Our Top Golf, which was planned for earlier this summer, has been delayed to August the 20th, but it is still on. They are back and open, and we are reducing. Instead of having the entire top floor, we'll have half the top floor, but which will be a great benefit to us. It'll be Thursday, August the 20th from 4 to 7 p.m. We still have room for a few more players, and of course we can always use more sponsors and silent auction items. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you've never been, it's a blast. $200 allows you to play. $200 per person will allow you to play. Have open bar and all the food you can eat. And if you don't want to play golf, you can join us for $100 a person for just food, drink, and wonderful fellowship. Our other camp, the fundraiser, Camp the Falls, a date has been scheduled for next spring. We'll have the festival on Sunday, April the 18th, where we have educational booths set up to learn about the environment, camping, urban camping, as well as fun activities for the children. There'll be a VIP tent with free drink and food for those who buy those tickets. So remember, at the festival, that's when we draw the tickets for the raffle. So whoever's name is drawn the following weekend will camp out by the falls, and they'll show up. We'll have the campsite set up. They'll get free gift certificates for dinner downtown, as well as a brunch the following day. They camp out by the waterfall, and then the next morning they get to pack up and they get to take the tent and the sleeping bags and everything home with them. So it's a great thing. Our inaugural one was fantastic. The next one will be even better. So make sure you plan for that. Also, we have a thing called Discover Rotary. So for all you guests who are joining us today, if you're not a member of a club already, know that we'd love to have you as a member of our club. And so we have a program called Discovery Rotary that tells about our club activities, as well as our international programs and what it takes to become a member. At this time, we're waiving our $200 initiation fee to join the Rotary. Remember, Rotary was founded as a networking club before we turned our focus to service. So it's a great way to network while listening to great speakers and making a positive impact on our community. The next Discover Rotary will be Tuesday, July the 21st at 5:30. Or you can join us just prior to our next, to our last July lunch meeting, which will be on July the 28th at 11. You can feel free to have a Rotarian register online, contact me, Michelle, Jane, or any member. We'll get you into Discover Rotary. Love to have you. A little over a year ago, and we had a Peace and Resolution conference, and it was an all-day event. It was wonderful. We had great speakers, talked about really a lot of pertinent topics that are going on today, about peace, race relations. We had the police officers there. It was just a fantastic event. And one of our members who's involved with that has decided one of the things there was, it was called Living Room Conversations. And it's this format about how to have conversations on kind of controversial topics. And so we've continued that once a month ever since then. And so we have on July 7th, the lunchtime conversations coming up. And Teresa Miller has headed that up. And this month, she's chosen the topic of racial unrest, as we're experiencing in history, a time of discourse. In the South, we have this jagged past, and there are different interpretations of our history. And one example is the Confederate flag, and how some people see it as a positive icon, while others see it as an icon of slavery. You know, Abraham Lincoln is another historical divider. Some people can regard him as a hero, and others regard him as a monster. So this is the write-up from the website, because this is a planned program. It says, while historical narratives are often embraced by representing the true history, there's growing awareness of the degree to which they are, in fact, composed of specific interpretations of certain events and not others. As Winston Churchill stated, history is written by the victors. More than interpreting a specific version of the past, historical narratives are also oriented to the future. They create deep beliefs about who we are, where we come from, and what are the right prospects. They also construct images of the others and meanings of intergroup relations, describing others as enemies or allies, superiors or inferiors. Thus, the historical narratives prescribe a specific course of action and justify our attitudes and behaviors towards each other. So let's get together and talk about it. So I know it's a very sensitive topic, but it's at lunch on July the 7th. Please let us know if you can attend, just because we try to make sure we're in smaller groups, and we can even do that during Zoom. You can email Teresa Miller. It's Teresa Miller, one word, Teresa Miller 1000 at yahoo.com. You can let me know, Jane, Michelle, or have a Rotarian registry on DACDB. It's just a great way to have a conversation. It's a great way to define your listening skills. And I found it as a great way just to get to know other Rotarians, which has been a big benefit to me. Update on Alexandria Elementary School. So the school, we don't know anything about the start of school and how it's going to look, but we do know that we're going to continue to work to support the teachers and students at Alexandria in every way we can. Unfortunately, we had to cancel a lot of our events that we had planned for this past semester. One of the things that some of you don't know, maybe we even had planned, was that think about it, Christmas, when they have those giving trees or gift trees, you can go and you can pull your ornament off of it for a child. We were going to have some at our meetings, and they were going to be called giving trees. And one of the things that the students at Alexandria, they're required to wear uniforms, and they're not expensive uniforms. They can be purchased at Walmart, but for some of these families, it's a stretch. And so some of the students actually only have like one uniform that they wear every single day. And so by the end of the year, you can imagine they're starting to get worn. They've had instances where, you know, a child tears of their uniform in a playground. They come in, they're historical, and they're like, this is not really that important. But then they realize for their family, it is important because that's the only uniform they have. And so our plan had been to put all these sizes of the uniforms up on these trees, and people could go and grab one, and just like at Christmas, purchase the uniforms for the kids. And we're going to have uniforms for the kids that need them, and the ones that are left over, we're going to have them. So what they also said, you know, when some families are trying to register at the last minute and they're getting their kids to school, register for school right before it starts, they find out they have to have a uniform, and the look on their faces like, oh my gosh, I'm just now getting settled, hadn't planned on that. So we were going to have uniforms for them to do that. Well, Kathy McAfee had gotten 2 trees donated that we're going to have in the Weston Poinsett with all these ornaments. She's been keeping those alive this entire time. And so sometime in July, we're working with the school, and we're going to go plant those trees. So we're going to be asking you for volunteers for that. We've continued to check on the students, and they're still getting meals. They can still pick up meals through the school district. And then also, just that whole area we worry about. So we have a canned food drive planned on Wednesday, July the 29th from 12 to 2. It'll be a drive-through in the Rotary office parking lot. And if you can't come by then, just let us know. We can have volunteers come and pick up the food. But look for information. These are the plans to collect all these canned goods and take them to the food kitchen in the Alexander area so that they can get to many of our families. And we're waiting on details for the fall semester, but just know we are planning on a Happy Feet program where we buy shoes for the needy children so they have shoes to start back to school. And then there'll be other information, but look for more information on our newsletter. So I think that is it in terms of our announcements. Going to go into our Service Above Self Scholar. So our club has always had a focus on literacy, whether it's supporting the Greenville Literacy Association, Read to Me programs where we read to preschool children, the Teacher of the Year program through Greenville County Schools, or our work at Alexander Elementary School. But we've always provided a lot of scholarships for students to attend school. And around 6 years or so ago, we decided instead of providing 5 or 6 scholarships every year, we're going to really provide 1 scholarship. It's a lot more meaningful because that person who's the recipient is going to get $5,000 a year for 4 years to attend college. So think about that. That means we're giving away $20,000 a year for college scholarships. So the competition is quite strong, and we've got some great scholars that have received these. So today we have with us Jaden Beek, and Jaden Gale Beek is our 2019 Rotary Service Above Self Scholar. She graduated from the Greenville Tech Charter High School in 2019. And because of their dual enrollment program, she received an Associate's in Arts degree from Greenville Tech, as well as a high school degree while maintaining a 5.0 average. At Greenville Tech Charter School, she was founder and president of Health Occupation Student Association. She served as vice president of National Honor Society and was a member of the Beta Club and much more. During the 2018-19 school year, Jaden interned at the Phoenix Center in Greenville. And during the time, she planned a community-wide event focusing on the crossroads of mental health and drug addiction. She addressed the initiative before Greenville County Council and wrote an op-ed in the Greenville News about the event, all before completing high school. What great character. The youngest daughter of a Jamaican immigrant and a South Carolina native, Jaden says that she had the privilege of experiencing what life is like in seeming similar but inherently different cultures. She continues, more than anything, my upbringing and personal conviction have guided me into a life of service. This past year, Jaden was enrolled in One Life, an innovative year of service and learning offered by Southern Wesleyan University. She will return to Southern Wesleyan in the fall. Jaden says that service is an intricate part of who she is, and community service efforts remain an important part of her life. Jaden will talk about her service work during her first year in college. So I'd like to turn it over to Jaden so we can hear from her.
Good afternoon. It is such an honor to be able to come before you all once again. As I reflect upon this past year of broadening my horizons, I am so humbled by how my understanding of service has also increased. I'm excited to share my experiences and new understanding with you all today. Service is seeing, stopping, and spending time with others. I spent a day interacting with the homeless population in downtown Denver, where I got to see these values come to life. My mission was to make them feel seen, let them know they are known, valued, and worthy of being treated humanely. The city of Clarkston, Georgia has aided in resettling over 35,000 refugees in the past 25 years. During my visit to Clarkston, I was blessed with the opportunity to work with friends of refugees. This nonprofit organization is dedicated to seeing, spending time with, and making a difference in all the lives they impact. Through serving as an after-school tutor and designated swing pusher, I made new friends, shared my knowledge, and learned so much more than I had ever expected to. Service is remembrance and celebration. I witnessed this come to life during my weekly visits to the Clemson Downs Assisted Living Facility. From 2 to 4 every Tuesday, I made new friends amongst the residents, connecting over memories of their past and games of Scrabble and bingo. The best days were birthdays, celebrated with song and cake on the second Tuesday of every month. Service is creativity. Through serving as a founding member of One Life's Arts and Media Committee, I was able to help lead an art project for the Dream Center, a nonprofit organization dedicated to giving vulnerable populations a hand up instead of a hand out. In support of their mission, my committee and I painted a portable mural that reflected the Dream Center's values of hope, restoration, and love. I was also able to hone in on my creativity in planning a networking brunch for the young women in my One Life community. The brunch was geared towards introducing these young women to various career paths through women already established in their fields. While the brunch was unfortunately canceled due to COVID-19, the planning and anticipation put into it has laid a beautiful foundation for future events I would love to carry out. Service is civic engagement. During the holiday season, many of Greenville's inhabitants are not guaranteed a joyful time due to food insecurity. Through my church's food ministry, I had the opportunity to aid in a Christmas dinner soup kitchen. And earlier this year, once the virus hit Greenville County, one group of individuals that were not able to social distance was the homeless population. While most of us have been able to quarantine within our home safety with the confidence in our next meal, too many in Greenville did not have this luxury. Continuing efforts with my church, I was able to help ease concerns about food by assisting and feeding over 200 of Greenville's homeless men, women, and children. This is just a brief list of the wonderful opportunities I have had to make a meaningful difference in the lives I encounter. The One Life program I participated in this past school year has been a life-changing experience that I am so blessed to have been a part of. I am a better Jaden today than I was yesterday, and I'm much improved in my service efforts from this time last year. This is not to suggest that I am nearing perfection, nor is it to imply that I've not been able to meaningfully serve in the past, but to confess that I have become more self-aware and am intentional in my efforts. This past year has stretched my limits. Through completing the One Life program, I have been taken beyond the classroom, upon the mountains of Colorado, into the wilderness of Cumberland Island, to the Holy Land, and to the feet of those in need. I have taken chances, talked to strangers, and built resilience. I have learned the value of conflict and of conversation. I have seen the beauty of community and commitment to service. As I close, I would like to extend a sincere thank you to you all. Thank you for this opportunity to share. Thank you for your continual support of my civic and educational growth. I am so looking forward to seeing what avenues for difference making lie within this next year.
Thank you, Jaden. That was fantastic and very inspirational for all of us. We really appreciate what you do and what you mean to all of us. Dr. Bell's journey started in El Paso, Texas. As a young child, her hero was explorer Jacques Cousteau. From the middle of the desert, she was intrigued as he unlocked the amazing mysteries from the depths of the oceans. Fortunately, her family frequently visited her mother's hometown of Jacksonville, Florida. Her childhood visits to the ocean reinforced her dream of exploring the ocean's secrets. This made her college aspirations clear as she entered the University of Texas at Austin in 1978 as an aspiring marine biologist. To pursue her goals, she majored in molecular biology. After graduation, she worked at a university lab researching muscle cell development. It was tedious and frankly, it was boring work to me, she said. Dr. Bell realized she wanted more human interaction mixed with her scientific aspirations. So she decided to become a doctor at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. She focused on internal medicine and discovered a passion for the study of infectious diseases. After graduating from medical school, she applied to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention program as an epidemic intelligence service officer. While at the CDC in Atlanta, she met her husband, an Aiken native who was in his cardiologist fellowship. While at the CDC in Atlanta, she met her husband, an Aiken native who was in his cardiologist fellowship. He soon got a job in his home state of South Carolina, and Dr. Bell was able to move with him and finish her CDC program at DHEC in 1993. She's been at DHEC ever since in a variety of roles, specializing in disease surveillance, identifying outbreaks, and developing guidance for the public and for healthcare providers. She's been the state epidemiologist for the past 8 years. Dr. Bell and her husband have 2 children and live in Columbia, South Carolina. We are very grateful that your journey has brought you to our Rotary Club and look forward to learning more about COVID-19, how it is impacting our community, and what we can do in response. Thank you, Dr. Bell.
Thank you for that introduction. A rather surprising introduction for my career path. I hope everyone can hear me okay, and I thank you for this invitation. I'm honored to be invited as a speaker. I'd also like to thank the Rotarians for all the work that they do from the Board of Public Health. And if you don't mind, I'd also like to thank Jaden for her incredible contributions as a young woman. She's remarkable, and if she's still listening, you have chosen a remarkable candidate to recognize and to continue her education. So Jaden, thank you for everything that you've done. I understand that your time is limited, and so with this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second while I pull up my presentation, and I will get started shortly. I'll give you a brief overview of coronavirus, and what I plan to touch on is just a very brief background of coronaviruses, our evolving understanding of this new novel virus, a situational update from an international, national, and local perspective of what we're experiencing, and then prevention and control activities. Coronaviruses are a family of viruses that are actually common in many different species of animals. Human coronaviruses are a common cause of a range of mild to moderate upper respiratory illnesses, including the common cold that is actually caused by a coronavirus. Coronaviruses rarely become capable of infecting humans, and not only infecting humans, but then becoming efficiently transmitted from person to person. We have only seen a few instances of that in the past with recent outbreaks of the SARS epidemic, which was a coronavirus, and the Middle East respiratory syndrome that was also caused by a coronavirus. So with this new coronavirus, it's named COVID-19 for coronavirus disease discovered in 2019. And we have just a few months of experience with this virus, and we're learning very rapidly. One of the things that has become most evident is we originally saw this as an emerging respiratory illness, believed it would be similar to influenza in its mode of transmission and other coronaviruses, which are transmitted by respiratory droplets. These are large droplets that can be coughed by people who are ill in most instances. But what we've learned with the coronavirus is that surprisingly, it has characteristics of behaving more like an airborne rather than a respiratory transmission. And what that means is instead of just being capable of being spread by large respiratory droplets, which can fall to the ground quickly and don't remain suspended in the air, what we see with airborne transmission is that there are micro droplet nuclei that remain suspended in the air longer than larger respiratory droplets. And they can not only be spread by people who are symptomatic with the cough, but they can be spread by people who are infected but who do not have symptoms through breathing, coughing, singing. And so this increases our risk of transmission from people who do not have symptoms, and it prolongs the potential exposure. Some other things that we've actually learned in this very recent history that we have with coronavirus is, as a respiratory illness, we expected that this would cause lung disease, upper respiratory infections, and lower respiratory infections. But unfortunately, what we've learned is the spectrum of complications by this virus is that it can infect almost every organ system of the body. We see complications not only in the lungs and the pulmonary system. There is a presentation with gastrointestinal symptoms. We see kidney disease or renal disease, renal failure. We see vascular disease. We have reports of strokes in young, previously healthy individuals in their 40s and 50s. We have seen what is called the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, so that in young children, they develop vascular complications. We see neurologic complications. Many of you may be aware of the loss of taste or smell with infections. So the COVID-19 virus is spread more easily than we originally thought, and it causes more complications than we originally thought. I'll talk a little bit about a situational update going from the international perspective through our local perspective. This is a map of the world, and this is actually a representation of about 3 weeks ago. And at that time, since the COVID-19 infections were first identified in China in December of 2019, internationally, there have been more than 8.9 million people worldwide who have been reported to have been infected with the COVID-19, the virus that causes COVID-19. Rising has been attributed to the more wide availability of testing. However, in other countries that were originally spared from widespread transmission, we are seeing that it is spread to almost every country in the world, some more than others. Many of the world's wealthiest countries have slowed their outbreaks, but some only marginally, and I must include the United States in that. Currently, the United States has recorded about 2.3 million cases and more than 168,000 deaths. That is more than any other country. And unfortunately, 25% of the world's cases of coronavirus are in the United States. This is another representation of the disease curve. This shows where the outbreak first started in China, beginning in February. And what I would really like to show with this curve is, this is actually go to the New York Times, and you can see these visualizations for every country. And so when you look at the curve of the United States as compared to other countries, the United States is really the only, particularly the only developed country that has a curve that looks like this, a slow and steady and then a more marked increase rather, where many other countries have shown a dramatic peak with a dramatic decline. And the fact that our curve looks like this is something of great concern to public health officials. This is a different representation, a map of the United States. I gave a similar talk to this on May the 29th. So I am showing this slide. And at that time, you can see the states with the darkest colors. This is a heat map of the United States that are darkly colored in. At this time, just about 3 weeks ago, there were ones to, so please pay attention to the fact that this is May 29th. This is the same map of June 22nd. You can see that there are a significantly higher number of cases that are colored in darkly. This speaks to the disease activity in those states. You can see South Carolina surrounded by our neighboring states that have higher rates of transmission than we do. And so after a matter of just about 3 weeks, we went from 1.7 million cases in 3 weeks to 2.2 million cases in the United States. From 100,000 deaths, we have added 19,000 more deaths since the end of May. So the previous map shows all this colored in homogeneously, but the point from this map shows that within states, as we drill down and look at hotspots within, and so in fact within South Carolina, along our coastal counties, you can see the dark red color, where we are actually one of a handful of states that have rapidly increasing case rates. And this is not homogeneous within the state, but it is within pockets of communities within the state. And to look even further down, this represents, this is actually disease activity from about 3 weeks ago, but this shows within our counties. And what we pay attention to as public health officials as we investigate each individual case, where we try and learn of the source of transmission or the source of exposure for each case, which is actually very difficult once there's widespread community transmission. But what we also investigate is within each jurisdiction, within each county, we drill down within each neighborhood, and we attempt to identify, are these cases the result of household transmission, which is often the fact. But what we also find is that there are differences within racial and ethnic groups within each community. We see that there is transmission within congregate settings, and this is everything from places of employment at times to nursing home facilities, correctional facilities. So there are congregate settings where transmission occurs. And then we learned that there are actually community activities. These are everything from neighborhood barbecues from 20 to 50 to 100 people to community activities, festivals. So we drill down and investigate these cases to help us learn where transmission is occurring, how we can target our interventions, how we can offer more testing so that we can identify cases that are existing in the community, and so that we can reinforce prevention measures. You can see there in the upstate that Greenville is one of our counties that is one hotspot for us. And we recognize within the Greenville community, there are certain areas of concern with Hispanic populations in the Greenville area, and other racial and ethnic groups and community-wide activities that are fueling disease transmission in Greenville and in other counties. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the epidemiology of disease, looking more at demographics. So this is our, we call this an epi curve. It's an epidemiologic curve of cases by date of onset. You can see the shape of that curve. And the main thing that I want to draw attention to is a rapid increase in cases that began, well, actually a slow upward trend in cases beginning around the end of May. That was Memorial Day weekend. We began to see cases about a week after Memorial Day weekend. That makes sense for the 14-day incubation period for this disease, with symptoms of onset after exposure anywhere from roughly 2 to 7 days after exposure. And then each one of those cases can infect about 1 to 2 more cases if physical distancing and the widespread use of masks is not in place. And so we've seen exactly that with our reopenings and not necessarily the widespread adoption of the use of masks or physical distancing. That is why we are seeing this level of transmission. And in fact, in the last 14 days, we have seen 45% of all the cases that we have recognized in the last 14 days from the beginning of this epidemic in South Carolina. Some other information about the epidemiology that I'd like to show with you is you will see the age groups from May 29th to June 20th. And from the beginning of this epidemic, we saw primarily older age groups. That's who were presenting with more serious illness who were testing and coming to our attention. And so there was a peak in those over the age of 60. What we're seeing now is we've seen over a 200% increase in cases in the 15 to 25-year-old age group and over a 600% increase in younger age groups. You can see the difference in that curve. So it is our young people who are fueling this epidemic. We have not seen an increase in hospitalizations as much as you might expect, but that's because these are younger people who are less likely to be hospitalized, but they are still contributing to disease transmission, and they are less likely to use the prevention measures. If we look at the demographic impact, African Americans make up a smaller proportion of our population, but from the beginning of the epidemic, about 43% of all cases. Now, that proportion in African Americans has fallen to about 36%, still significantly more than what they represent in our population, but whites and other racial groups are representing a higher proportion of cases. Something important that I want to point out, though, is with the change in the age group distribution and the racial distribution, the pattern for the deaths in South Carolina remain essentially the same. That those who are suffering the most, individuals over the age of 60, although we do see an increase among those who are over 80. And so it is these individuals who are older, those with underlying health problems that we must all protect. And I was really so pleased to learn that the Greenville City Council had voted, I believe, to require the use of masks in public places. Those measures protect all of us, those who might not suffer consequences that are so severe from infection, but who may spread it to others who will. And so these are actually my final two slides. I want to talk about those prevention measures. We're all aware that currently there is no vaccine, and I think the prospect in the near future to have a vaccine is very uncertain. With vaccine development, I would not expect to see an effective and safely tested vaccine to be available any sooner than the year 2021. I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's what the projections look like. So all of our prevention measures rely on avoidance of exposure. We continue to encourage people, even with the reopenings, to stay at home as much as possible, particularly if you're at increased risk for having consequences. These are people who have underlying lung disease, heart disease, diabetes, asthma, obesity. All of those individuals are more likely to have complications should they become infected. And that they, if they must go out, should avoid close contact within 6 feet of others, particularly if they're not using masks. To wear a cloth face covering that covers your nose and your mouth whenever you're in public and you cannot maintain physical distancing. To practice good hygiene. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces. Wash your hands thoroughly after you touched frequently touched surfaces. The control measures, I won't talk too much about this, but we do investigate all suspect and confirmed cases. We attempt to identify their contacts to make sure that those who are infectious stay in isolation until after their infectious period. That is 10 days after they develop symptoms, and that their symptoms have resolved and that they no longer have fever if they did have symptoms. And that their close contacts should stay in quarantine for 14 days and monitor for symptoms to avoid the possibility of spreading infection in the 2 days prior to developing symptoms, which is actually a possibility. I won't go too much more into our prevention and control measures because I want to be respectful of your time and very respectful of this invitation. And so that's my final slide.
Dr. Bill, thank you very much. If you have a few minutes, I know we already have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to try to go over some of those questions and see what your responses might be.
Thank you.
One I know that I read earlier was, is there a way that we can have this presentation that we can share it on an individual basis?
Yes, I'm happy to share.
I'm sorry we missed all that. So if I'll tell you what, we will get the contact information and we'll send it out to all of our members and try to get it out as much as we can. Here's a question, Dr. Bell. What will it take for the governor to mandate mask use throughout the state? Is there a trigger number of cases or deaths per day that might encourage him to do that?
I can't really speak for the governor and what he would base his decisions on, but we do continue to provide our information about the dramatic increase in cases where that's occurring. We continue to recommend what we know to be. And there is good evidence of this based on what we've seen in other communities who adopted widespread requirements for mask use, delayed openings, and saw a significant downturn in their disease transmission. So we will continue to provide that information to the governor. And what we would like to see is a significant downward trend in our disease activity that persisted for at least 14 days before we look at all and relaxing any of the measures, any of the restrictions that are currently in place.
Okay, I have a compliment if you take those. One says from Tammy, Dr. Bell, I have lived all over the US and I think you are one of the best in this field and I am proud to be a South Carolinian in large part because of you.
Thank you so much.
From Arnold Scott Powell, Dr. Bell, should we allow students to return to school in August?
Well, I think that we cannot keep our students from their education. I mean, we have these superstars like Miss Beek at every level, from primary education through secondary and higher ed. For primary education, we're working very closely with State Superintendent Molly Spearman, providing guidance for primary education, where they can put in place every measure possible to limit class sizes, to practice, to put in place engineering measures, administrative controls, to allow students to social distancing, looking at everything from school buses to cafeteria, the way meals are shared, the use of masks, and the possibility of online learning to continue. We're also doing this with higher education. This is a new normal, and we want to continue essential activities. Education is the foundation of public health and everything else that we do. So to maintain education as best we can and to prevent disease spread is one of our highest priorities. And as we learn more about best practices and how to do that safely, we will continue to do that. And it is my hope that that all of our children can return to some safe learning environment to the greatest extent possible.
Another question from George Fletcher is, of those tested, how many are asymptomatic?
So the proportion of people who are asymptomatic, I don't have a ready answer for. And it depends on the setting. I can give you examples. For example, in our nursing homes statewide, we pursued a study to test every nursing home resident and every staff member in our nursing homes beginning in May over the course of 3 weeks. And we did learn that there are a significant number of asymptomatic positives in those congregate settings. Older people may be less likely to display symptoms or maybe less likely to be able to report symptoms. But we found everywhere from 10% who were asymptomatic. This includes not only patients and residents, but also staff members who are asymptomatic. But for the population as a whole, I can't give you a figure of the proportion of asymptomatics. But it's important to think about because they are in our population, they are in the public, and this is one of the things that we must protect ourselves against, that you can't tell who's infectious by the presence of obvious symptoms. Okay,
I could do this all day, so we'll leave it to 3 more questions. And the next one is from Dale Stewart. He goes, from those who suggest that this is a man-made virus, what are your thoughts on that?
There is abundant evidence that that is not the case. So we have seen the emergence of these novel viruses actually in the same scenario that occurred in China. And there is, in China, there are actually large animal markets where they have live animals of multiple species who, as I mentioned in my first slide, that there are coronaviruses that are species specific. They can affect birds, swine, and amphibians and so forth. But when there are large animal markets where there are live animals present, there can be this commingling of viruses, and there's a change in their genetic makeup that makes them effectively transmitted to humans. And that is exactly what occurred in nature. We've seen this before with SARS. We've seen it before with swine flu, with avian influenza. And so there is absolutely zero evidence that this was a man-made virus, and there is abundant evidence based on historical information and what we know that happened in China, that this was the natural course of nature and how emerging viruses occur.
Okay, the next to the last question is from Melissa Gifford is, do we know how much of our increase is due to increased testing or increase in the virus?
We have a very good indicator of that. So we sought to rapidly expand testing, particularly in underserved rural areas. And so we did markedly increase our ability to identify new cases. And when we first started doing that, the percent of people who were positive was quite low. When we have a low percent positive of cases, that tells us about the adequacy of testing. It means that we are testing a lot of individuals who are not positive. What we are seeing now is that our positivity rates have actually, we started out with roughly about 10% positive when we were restricting testing to those who are hospitalized, and that was due to a limitation in supplies. We had about 10% positive. As we expanded testing, the percent positive fell to around 4 to 7%. Currently, we have about 16% positive among all those who are tested. And so that tells us that our population as a whole is sicker, that we need to expand testing more so that we are again identifying more people who are not positive cases. So the fact that the positivity rate has gone up tells us that this is not just testing alone. This is that there are more sick people in the population, and we are finding those sick people.
Okay, for the last question, I'm going to mix several here, is in the current situation, what is your advice about going to political rallies or going to protest, or from our case, having a large group meeting with over 50 people? So if you could touch on those for us.
Yes, thank you for hosting this meeting remotely. And we like people to consider what are essential activities. So we must go out in public and do certain things. And I really like the term, it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. So finding ways to socialize and maintain physical distancing is important. We want people to be socially responsible, and we want people to be socially active. And I loved the presentation at the beginning about these living room conversations. There are so many things in our society that are really important for us to discuss. There are safe ways that we can do that. If you're going to be in a large setting and large groups, we do ask people to minimize that. But if people feel those activities are essential and important to social causes, that we encourage the absolutely always wear a mask. As much as possible, physically distance yourself from anyone who is not using a mask. With large rallies of any kind, it becomes more and more difficult. So those who are more vulnerable to having complications, we particularly ask those individuals to seriously consider what you seek to do in public. And so I leave that up to individual discretion. But want to make sure that everybody has as much information we can provide as possible about how they can protect themselves. And ask everyone, especially our younger people, to protect older individuals. There are many activities that are optional, that are recreational, and that we may not see as essential, and it's important to avoid those whenever possible.
Dr. Bell, thank you so much. And if I'm sure someone on your staff has looked through these, and there's many, many, many thank yous from not just me, but all these people. For everybody who's listening, we will do our best to get this presentation put on the district website, and we will publicize it through that. And also, like I said, you can contact me at janedyersc@gmail.com or our club at clubadmin@greenvillerotary.org. So back to you, Scott. And thank you again, Dr. Bell.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. It's great to have you with us today. Thank you for all you're doing. At this time, it's kind of time to pass the gavel. So it's hard to believe that the Rotary year has come to an end. I knew it's challenging to help lead a club of 250 members, but I think we've had a great year. I think back of how successful Camp the Falls was and all the work we're doing in Alexandria. I'm very proud of that. It's also been thankful to have such a great board to work with. Can't thank Michelle and Jane enough. Jane has worked harder than any present nominee ever. We had great programs. It's been a good year. Did not expect and was not prepared for the Garden Club or COVID-19, but we have made it through, and I really am thankful to have served you, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know many of you better, and thank you each for your support and the service that you've given to make Greenville a better community. So at this time, I want to install our incoming Rotary president. So Jane Ballard Dyer, you have been selected by members of the Rotary Club to guide the affairs for this upcoming year. You have been entrusted with an important responsibility that will help shape our club's future. Incoming President Jane, you have been elected to the office of President of the Rotary Club of Greenville by its members as an expression of their confidence in your leadership. I have an oath for you, Jane. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jane Dyer, do solemnly swear
I, Jane Dyer, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the Rotary Club of Greenville
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the Rotary Club of Greenville,
and that I will, to the best of my ability, give support and assistance to the District Governor and the Rotary International,
and that I will, to the best of my ability, give support to the District Governor and Rotary International,
and that I will uphold the Constitution and bylaws of the club.
and that I will uphold the Constitution and bylaws of the club.
Congratulations. All right, I'm also want to install our officers and directors for this coming year. So to the incoming officers and directors, and our incoming board members are John Allen, Devin Clement, Melissa Gifford, Fatima Ghazala, Teresa Miller, our 2019-20 Rotarian of the Year, Marie Murphy, Mike Snively, Lindsay Sink, and Pam Weaver. So to you have been elected to important positions in the administration of the Rotary Club of Greenville. This is an indication of your fellow Rotarians' esteem and confidence in all of you. They also believe you uphold the highest traditions of your club, and that you will give the best of your executive ability to the furtherance of the interest of your club and the carrying forward of the object of Rotary. Will you fulfill the responsibilities of your offices to the best of your ability in accordance with the Constitution and bylaws of this club? And the response is, we will. I'm looking at your faces. Okay. I hereby declare the new officers and directors installed and give the President Jane the gavel. So wish we could be there to give it to you, as a symbol of transfer of the administration of this club. To the outgoing officers and directors, and I want to recognize them. Their support has been hard to explain. It's been phenomenal. We have Rob Brissy, Ryan Brown, Joan Burkett, Ron Demonay, our former president, Doris Haley, Jimmy Kimball, Lisa Mangione, Brenda McKay, and Caroline Stewart. Though you are retiring from the administration of your club, your continued active involvement in this club is extremely important and highly encouraged. Thank you all for your service. So at this time, I will turn it over to our new president, Jane Dyer.
Scott, we can't thank you enough. There are 3 areas I would like to specifically thank you for all the work you've done this past year. The first is bringing to our club Alexander Elementary. And I tell you, everybody's enthusiasm is unmatched, and the inspiration you brought to us so that we can not only support the teachers there, but the children there, and the great opportunity that we have been able to serve together as Rotarians. So I thank you for that. Secondly, is your unbelievable persistence in making sure that Camp the Falls goes on. Many of you do not know the many phone calls and conversations and road signs of stop, stop, stop that have been put in front of Scott, and he just has continued on. And so we're looking forward to a great Camp the Falls in the springtime because of you. And thirdly, with all these challenges of the virus, you have really done a great job of seeking out through the board, how can we best serve and keep our members and going forward. And you really have done a great job of getting that all together. And we have 15 members who will be getting scholarships or membership grants. And so those are 15 valuable Rotarians that will stay in our club, and we thank you for that. So we thank you for the whole year and those things specifically. And of course, we would like to thank your wonderful wife, Pam, who is a Rotarian and has been there with you the whole time. And at this time, you should have a gift. And if you would please open that and show the rest of the club our little token for all you've done for us. Plus you have a great sense of humor, and we appreciate that too. The funniest thing I think though is when Pam said that you just can't take the bowling springs out of that man. And it's been a big benefit over that time that you can't take the bowling springs out of that man.
That's right. Thank you all. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for the club. We appreciate it. It's been a great honor to serve you.
Thank you so much. And of course, as I start my year, I'd like to thank my wonderful husband who's right here by my side. And he is my previewer of emails and my answer to many questions. And I just appreciate him always being here and supporting me. Thanks to our incoming board, and this year's leadership committee will be Ramona Farrell, who is the vice president, Grady Patterson as the secretary, and all our new board members. We're looking for a great year. Rotary International's motto is Rotary opens opportunities. So in the coming year, we'll be focusing on 3 specific areas. There'll be networking, service, and fun. So our next meeting on July the 14th, I'll be presenting to the club our new initiatives, how we're going to be moving forward, how we continue to deal with the constraints of the current times, but also to increase and make our club more important to us individually as a group and to our community and to the world. Then speaking of successes, the following on July the 28th, we'll hear from our own Rich Hagans, who last year was designated as the Southeastern Entrepreneur of the Year. And so he's going to be talking to all of us about becoming a successful entrepreneur. So please plan to join us and invite a friend. Thank you in advance for your support in the coming year. I look forward to it. Today, I want to thank Jaden, who is, like I said, an inspiration and amazing and wonderful. We are thrilled as a club to be able to support you in continuing your education and your commitment to service above self. We can't thank Dr. Bell enough for being with us to answer our questions and inform us on the facts of the current virus and what we can do. Thank you, Scott, again for a wonderful year. You did a great job. As you know, your shoes are so big I can never fill them, but I will try. Thank you to all of our guests. We would love to have you look us up and see if there's anything we can help you. We'd love to have all of you visit us again for Rotary and think about joining us in our commitment to network, serve, and have fun. Even though we're virtual, you can always contribute to CART, which is our Rotary Alzheimer's Research Program. If you have questions how you can contribute, please contact Michelle. And as we move forward this week, let's all recite together the Rotary 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? and will it be beneficial to all concerned? This meeting is adjourned.